channels that are really important to us, like nature stuff. You are going to have the highest quality nature pictures in the Bay Area, but you're going to have terrible quality data quality in Jacksonville, Florida, because you're not in Jacksonville, Florida.
I mean, I guess one way of. I mean, I was just going to say, like, looking at, like, Foursquare is a good example. I mean, it's not a for-profit thing, but it is that, like, there's something about, and yeah, it's full of weird data.
And people add venues all the time.
But yeah, I mean, it is, like, there is something rewarding to doing it. I mean, I think that's part of, like, the trick is finding out, you know, what it is that motivates your users.
People have turned it off. My friends that were using Foursquare in Gowalla last year at South by tell me that they've turned it off.
There's a massive number of people who are choosing to engage with it on an ongoing basis, and that's really all that the Foursquare guys are going to care about. Everything that all the kind of different strands of this conversations have been really centered about is this value proposition. You know, like businesses like Flickr have very subtly, very intelligently, very beautifully in a way, established a fantastic value proposition to people that you can upload and track in your photos. It's in a central repository online. You know, your grandmother in Australia, if you're me in UK, can see these things. And then, oh, by the way, for £20 in the UK, you can have Flickr Pro, which is even better. And by the time I'm 100% committed to my Flickr membership, the £20 seems like brilliant value for money, and well, hey, I'm there. And what the point I'm making is that that value proposition has been very cleverly engineered, and I think a lot of Web 2 services have really thrived on this kind of delivery of a value proposition that is easy to sign up to. So the Foursquare value proposition is incredibly easy to sign up to because it's free, but beyond that, the service has to deliver quality, and that's something that really kind of I concern myself about, because quality in the sense that you know, the mechanics of the information that's being provided, that was touched on, but also how quality is the sample of data based on the demographic of the people who are providing the information. So, you know, being a geolocation nut who's, you know, strapping a device to his back and doing a bike ride to track the information is great, but information about a point of interest that could provided by my grandmother in Australia. I don't even have a grandmother in Australia, so I use that example. but what I'm saying is there's a value to the information she can provide, but how easy can it be for us to extract it? So that becomes a design challenge in the services we provide, and you know, that's something that really interests me.
All I wanted to point out, and you're right, is I don't know if anyone else is experiencing it, but I don't live in a place where everyone's connected. You know? Nobody lined up to get an iPad today in Jacksonville.
Do you know your neighbors?
I know all of my neighbors.
Wow.
What's that?
What planet?
It's a small town.
Where's Florida?
But what I would say is, I would challenge this community here is just for a second, go out, have some coffee, and think if it's possible. Just a plain old supply and demand problem. Knowing that the supply of time is fixed, and we are all demanding users to do work for us via the crowdsourcing. Think if it's possible. We're all going to have really, really good value propositions, because it's my expectation that 10 years from now, when this is the common model, people aren't going to want to take the time to add different data.
Well, we're not demanding anything. Like, people do it. People contribute because they get something out of it. Like that's the thing. There's other forms of compensation than monetary compensation.
Michael, what I'm saying is that there are so many different services that a user can consume that we don't have the kind of density of information for responses in order for that data to be of high
quality.
So you're
saying everyone has a little piece of the data.
Exactly.
No, but I mean, the data will converge, and I think, probably Yelp will probably take over your business.
If Locutionary makes $1 million, he's perfect, because he's saying, everyone push a bunch of information into me, and then I'll provide it to everyone else. You kind of need that bottleneck eventually, because sooner or later people aren't going to be willing to put that in.
And that's happening. I mean, like, Gowalla and Loot and Foursquare and all of them are all talking about consolidating on a business database. Like that's not something that people aren't like aware of. That's a problem that people are aware of.
This problem is being solved. I mean, that's what no one hears from OpenStreetMap, right? They say, oh, it's there. Put your data in. You can extract it out. It's completely open. It's free of any other commercial interest in controlling it. It's a really good point though about, exactly, it's like, wait, didn't I already add this restaurant once somewhere? Or something, why do I have to keep adding it again and again and again and again, and being able to share all that information? So it becomes less about, you're not always asking users, please tell us about things, just like, tell us about whatever value that you want to share, whether it's a photo or a person, and implicitly you can mine that information.
So again, I'm saying if you have a common data source, I agree. Not quite sure we're certainly not there yet, and I'm not quite sure we're going to get there in the near term.
Someone here thinks you're gonna get there in the near term.
What's that?
These two guys probably think you're gonna get there in the near term, because that's what they're doing.
But can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Like, you're asking users to put data into your service.
No, I'm consuming data that I'm getting. My data is crap. What I'm saying is that all the different places that I'm looking, and the thing that I realize is my data used to not be crap, and when I ask my users why my data is crap now as opposed to what it used to be, it's because they have too many services to put the information into.
Okay, let me ask you a slightly different question. If users were putting data into your service, would you let them get it back out?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I mean, maybe that's another way to tackle the problem, which is, one way is to create, the one true bucket into which everything goes, which is, it's a great idea. It would make everyone's life a lot easier, but there's a lot of problems with it.
It's incredibly arrogant of me to assume that I'm going to have the service that's going to provide all the needs from my users.
All I'm saying
But
is
there would be multiple. I'm saying that as evolution happens, we're going to have multiple different services.
all I'm saying is that if users can, and this is not a way that anyone's done stuff before, but if users can get the data out and then migrate it between services, or if the data is available, then it becomes a business opportunity for someone to make mappings between them. Right, to basically just make the problem go away or to hide the problem from people. And from a user's perspective, they know that their data, the things that they've contributed, they get back, and it's portable, and they can carry it around.
Like a contact list from,
For instance.
I can export my contact list from Live and stick it into Gmail and vice versa. All right.
I mean, it's not a perfect solution.
I mean, also you're in Jacksonville. Maybe you're in the wrong. I mean, maybe you're in the wrong place. Or maybe 10 years from now. I mean, if people are not wired,
Hey, short version of a long story is I've done this before. Some of the older guys here have done this before, and all of us, I encourage you guys to understand that the world is bigger than the valley. It's much bigger than the valley.
I know, Santa Cruz.
Yes, but I mean, your typical users, he had the perfect example. A winemaker doesn't give a damn about their listing about Google right now. He's trying to make wine.
Yeah.
But a winemaker who is a retired tech executive, man, he's all about it. He's like, I got to make sure my Google information is correct. And there's a farmer in Nebraska that is actually going to be the consumer of our data services. We have to solve that problem. And if we give them so many different mouths to feed in order to get quality data, because we're all building different services to meet a different set of user needs, then all of our data is going to be wrong. And I think you're right. If we can have a single repository, well, you're right. If we can have a single repository, and you're right, if we can have some kind of mapping, that would be really successful. But then we all start to kind of expose our own business's secret sauce to each other, and that's going to be kind of weird too.
Well, I guess the argument is that the data shouldn't be the secret sauce. Right? Like, you can keep your secret sauce, but it shouldn't be the data.
Yeah, I'm sitting here really jealous of the fact that the data in here is public, because a lot of the problems you guys are talking about are, I mean, I do I'm anti-abuse, anti-spam stuff at Flickr, and I'm trying to make as much of it algorithmic as possible, so by the time a human has to look at it, it's high probability things that are probably spam, and, the actions are all centralized. And I can't say, oh, you know what, all these enthusiastic people in the Flickr community go through these messages and tell me if they're spam or not, because they're fucking private, right? But all of these data sets are public. So there's nothing stopping you from taking the enthusiastic people in your community and saying, you know what, you've had an account for 3 years, you've contributed really good stuff.
Flickr's a terrible example.
No, but I'm talking about what you're talking about. There's nothing stopping people that are doing this from saying, here's a guy that's been doing this for 3 years, they've contributed really good data, promote them, let them review incoming data. You can crowdsource the moderation, and I think some of that conversation was taking place when I walked in, so I missed some of it. But the data is public, right? The data isn't the secret sauce. That's the whole point that's the awesome part about this data set, is that you can share it, you can pass it around. It's all just things that are publicly available anyway. The challenge is making it accessible, right? So I don't buy your argument that as there's more points of entry, you're going to get more and more crap data because there's also more and more